Today on Canning with Leah, we are making spaghetti sauce. So yesterday I went ahead and harvested 3 5-gallon buckets of tomatoes from my garden. And what I did is I just poured them all into my sink, cleaned them up real good, and then I sorted them out. I saved the medium-sized ones for the spaghetti sauce. I prefer the medium-sized tomatoes for spaghetti sauce because once they get too big, they get too juicy. So I save the big ones for tomato juice. And then if they're too small, they're just a bit too tedious to work with and it takes more time. So I save the smaller ones for my salsa making. So I have them all sorted out and I have them cleaned up and I weighed out 30 pounds of the medium tomatoes and they're sitting on the countertop here drying off. And so now what I'm doing is boiling a pot of water because we have to blanch the tomatoes so that the skins are easier to take off. So I've got a kettle boiling right now and I'm going to start just putting some of them in there. You'll want to work in a few batches because it would just be too much to blanch all 30 pounds at one time. So I'll probably do about 3 batches, so a batch of about 10 pounds at a time. So again, now that the water is boiling, I'm just going to gently drop the tomatoes in there. And once they get in there, I just let them sit in there for just a few minutes until you can see that the skins are starting to crack and then they'll be easy to take off. All right, so now that we are done boiling the tomatoes for a few minutes, we went ahead and just put them in the sink, poured them out in the sink, and now I'm gonna go ahead and just spray them down with some cold water here. Okay, and then you'll notice that by blanching them, it really just makes the skins come loose a lot. You can basically just peel them off. And I put them in the bucket here. And then just take a small knife and cut the core out with the stem. So then between each batch of tomatoes that I'm adding to the kettle here, I have an immersion blender that I am going through and just blending the tomatoes as I add them. And the immersion blender works really nice because it gets everything pureed up nicely. If you don't have an immersion blender, you can even use like a potato masher, which is what I used before I had this. That works just fine too, but this just seems to be a much easier option. And then the next thing you do is take about 5 or 6 large green peppers, and I just run them through my food processor, and we'll go ahead and add them to the pot too.
No talking.
All right, and then we diced up 4 large onions, and we're adding that to the kettle. All right, so now I brought the pot of all of the tomatoes, onions, and peppers over to the stove, and I'm starting to cook it on medium to high heat. And now it's time to go ahead and start adding all of our ingredients. So the first thing I'm going to do is do 1/3 cup of canning salt. And then 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. And then the good stuff, we're going to add 2 cups of maple syrup.
It has to be real maple syrup.
Yep.
Oh, it looks so cool with the oil.
I know.
It kind of looks like spaghetti sauce lava lamp edition.
We use maple syrup in everything.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Finishing up this jar. And then 5 teaspoons of minced garlic, which I buy it in the jar. And then we'll do 8 teaspoons of oregano. 1. 4 teaspoons of basil. 1, 2, 3, 4. and 4 teaspoons of parsley. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 teaspoons of crushed red pepper flake.
We are using the Pizza Hut ones. You can use whatever ones you want.
Exactly. And then 4 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, or however you pronounce it. All right, and then now that we have all the ingredients added, we want to make sure we get it stirred in real nicely. Okay, now that the sauce is coming to a slow simmer, we'll go ahead and add 3 12-ounce jars or cans of tomato paste. So I just kind of added in my little forkfuls at a time. Just make sure that you stir the tomato paste in really good, because otherwise it could burn to the bottom of the pan. And then we'll keep simmering this for about 4 hours. And then while you're simmering it, you want to make sure that you're stirring it pretty frequently, so that it's not burning to the bottom. So it's definitely making spaghetti sauce is something that you want to be able to devote a pretty good amount of your day to. All right, so it has been 4 hours now, and my sauce has cooked down quite a bit. I tasted it. It tastes delicious. We did end up adding about another 2 cups of maple syrup to it. It just increases the flavor and makes it much tastier. So now what I did is in my quart jars, I put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in them. And then we'll go ahead and just start filling the jars. And then now that we've got the jar filled, I leave about 1/2 inch of headspace on the jar. And then use a cloth and just wipe off the edge, wipe off the jar. And then we'll go ahead and, again, I do my water trick where I have a bowl of water that I microwave for a couple minutes, and then I put all the lids in there for a while. We'll just go ahead and put the lid on. And tighten it till it's about fingertip tight. I do like to fill up pint jars as well, and in that I just put 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. The reason being is it's nice to have for pizza sauce. So whenever you want to make pizzas, or even like pizza pudgy pies while you're camping, it's just nice to have some. All right, and so now that I have all the jars filled, I'm putting them in my hot water bath. And you hot water bath them for 40 minutes. All right, so now that they've processed in the hot water bath for 40 minutes, I'll go ahead and take the jars out. And let them just cool until they seal. And one thing I would like to note is that when you're making homemade spaghetti sauce, do not wear a nice shirt, because the spaghetti sauce does splatter up on you. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Make sure to like it and subscribe to Canning with Leah.